with material goods and handbags will not make you happy. Just in case you didn't already know that.
Well said, Mr. Ford.
He's letting us all know.
Oliver Cornock is managing editor at the Oxford Business Group. Good morning, Ollie.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It was 1992, I think, that finally we found out the name of the head of MI5. And in those years, it was Stella Rimington. And we were all shocked. As it was supposed to be so secretive. And now they're giving front-page interviews to national newspapers.
Absolutely. Not any old national newspaper either. This is The Guardian that broke those, the Snowden files story, which was, of course, so controversial. Putting out there some of the tactics that the security services uses. The really interesting angle here, though, is not that we don't know any of this. The two big things, the Russian threat to the UK that's being written about, but also these 3,000 violent Islamic extremists that are apparently living in the UK. None of this, again, hugely surprising in what it is. What is surprising is, of course, the way it's packaged.
Why? I was just wondering why the exclusive interview? Why does he want to get this message out there to readers at this time?
In his own words, he says that it's time that the security forces and the security services go out there and are a little bit more public. I think he feels that the days of cloak and dagger are a little bit behind him. At the same time, he was also very critical in the past about efforts to expose mechanisms, to secret mechanisms. So I think it's a double-edged sword here. Interestingly, though, here very strong on these investigatory power bill, this surveillance bill that's going through the House at the moment, very strongly in favour of that. Quite a political note there.
He says Russia increasingly seems to define itself by opposition to the West and seems to act accordingly. He says there's been a covert threat for decades. What's different these days is there are more and more methods available. And actually linking it to the next story, the next line that he talks about, and the next story about Islamic extremists who use social media and the internet very effectively to get their message out there and even radicalise people online. 3,000 violent extremists said to be in Britain, he says.
Hugely powerful mechanisms, remember, social media.
Let's have a look at this next article then in The Times, which talks about what's going on in Mosul. And of course, Ian Pannell is covering this for us on BBC World News. Give us your take on how this is progressing.
Well, look, this is being held up as the last stronghold of Daesh or ISIS in Iraq. At the same time, there's a very interesting angle here which is coming out, which some of us who watch the Middle East have noticed. It's going to be this post-conflict situation. What's going to happen when ISIS goes? Where will the ISIS fighters go? We're already seeing quite a lot of them going over to Syria, presenting another problem. But who's actually doing the fighting here? It's quite a factional group of people. We've got the Kurds on one hand, we've got the Shia sects on another. Remember, a Shia government in Iraq, and we've got huge numbers of small Shia sects, which not many people know about. But afterwards, what's going to happen? Will they want a slice of the pie? Of course they will. Will the Sunnis want their stake? Remember, Mosul is actually a predominantly Sunni city. So this is a very complicated situation already, compounded, of course, by Turkey. One of the towns nearby, called Tel Afar, is full of Turkomans. And Erdogan, the president of Turkey, a very powerful man, has said that he wants a stake in that. So suddenly, all of this is looking like a right mess.
And what are people saying about how it's likely to be managed, the mess, by the current government in Iraq, for example?
Nobody's really saying anything at the moment. What is very clear, though, it is not going to be very easy to unify Iraq as we knew it 10, 15 years ago.
Because you're a Middle East expert, let's go back to an argument that began, a discussion that began years ago. Do you eventually see the country splitting into 3 separate states, Shiite, Sunni, Kurdish?
It's very difficult not to now, Adnan, I have to say. You have a very powerful Shia lobby backed by the predominance in Baghdad. You have a Sunni lobby which is very powerful, backed, of course, by the Saudi Arabia. The Shia backed by Iran, the 2 big power players within the region. And then you've got these wide balls, the Kurds, the Turks. Yes, it's very difficult to see Iraq unifying anytime soon.
It's like a post-Tito Yugoslavia situation.
Absolutely.
It seems. OK, this is yours.
Yeah, this time yesterday we were talking about will he stay, will he go, when will he go? This is Mark Carney, the Governor of the Bank of England, and it was expected that the speculation in the press would force him to say something on Thursday when they've got a scheduled press conference about their decision on monetary policy, which is scheduled on Thursday. But he felt he had to speak and say what his intentions were last night.
I think this all points towards the sensitivity of the markets surrounding Brexit, and particularly the pound and UK gilt bonds. Mark Carney came out actually after trading hours yesterday, quite a clever statement for market watchers, I suspect. He'd also had a 2-hour meeting with the Prime Minister in Downing Street, which would suggest that perhaps things were discussed. And then we have this letter. I mean, you have to give it to them. This is a very well-managed story, I would say. At the same time, of course, it's also worth pointing out that Mark Carney had his critics. There are those in the Brexiteer camp who see markets actually rather more buoyant than some had predicted, growth rather more buoyant, who would say that actually Mark Carney as governor politicised this office, which of course should never be politicised.
He argued strongly against that, though, didn't he, at the time? He said, actually, I have not said one way or the other. I've just literally given a factual outline of the scenario.
Absolutely. It just seems that I think he's played the politicians at their game and seems to have won so far.
The market reaction, though, is encouraging, isn't it, in the sense that there was not a big wobble in sterling and that kind of thing after his
Absolutely.
announcement.
At the same time, one has to point out that the stories coming out of Europe, particularly the sovereign debt story, not going away and rising again, perhaps that's more a reflection of that than anything else.
Yeah, so a weaker euro.
So the Finance Minister of the United Kingdom, it kind of ties back to what the head of the MI5 said about foreign governments. He was talking specifically about Russia and the threat of cyber attacks against the United Kingdom. You can be attacked with any smart device anywhere in the world, and every country needs to take care of cybersecurity.
This really just points to the fact that we're all very behind the curve here. You know, the Internet of Things has been on the tip of all of our tongues for ages, yet we don't realise quite what weaknesses this leaves us open to.
There was a piece in a Spanish newspaper just about 10 days ago saying that malware in your phone will just take every secret that you, with every button that you press. So you have to be extremely careful.
Keep changing the password.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Keep forgetting it. That's what I do. I forget mine all the time.
Let me just tell you this quick story. Aung San Suu Kyi in 2013 did an interview with Mishal Hussain, our colleague here on BBC World News. And it was a hard-hitting interview. At the end of the interview, Aung San Suu Kyi mumbled into an open microphone, "I didn't realise I was going to be interviewed by a Muslim." When it comes to the Muslim Rohingyas, she seems to be very quiet.
Absolutely, and I hadn't realised there are 800,000 Rohingya Muslims in Myanmar. And the broader picture, though, here is of the setup that is Myanmar. The very powerful military there, and it's really where the government controls the military, because whether the de facto president has particular control over that. The message, of course, though it sends to the Muslim minority is, of course, very worrying.
Yeah.
Now, in case we didn't already know...
How much did you pay for your dress?
Ford, for this dress, probably about £50.
How much do you pay for your suit?
£200, perhaps.
I wouldn't even have paid £200 for this suit. How much would you pay for a Tom Ford handbag? Sorry. It's great that he said it, though, isn't it? I mean, do you agree?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah. What, if you could afford to buy a £1,200 dress, would you buy one, or would you spend it somewhere else?
No, I wouldn't.
I think it's an important message. At the same time, the people who are going to be able to spend thousands of pounds on a Tom Ford handbag, are they really going to listen to him?
Yeah, they're not really their audience, are they?
I think more broadly, though, that the message is there, particularly when you look at a lot of developing countries, as I do. I spend a lot of time travelling around the world with Oxford Business Group to places, and the attachment that is placed on designer goods is actually really alarming.
What I always ask is how many people could be educated with the price spent on that handbag in Africa on a monthly basis?
Very good point. Ollie, thank you very much indeed. Always a great pleasure to see you. I'm going to pin this up on the kitchen wall. Thanks a lot.
See you soon. Bye-bye.